Hello, welcome to another edition of the Wealthy Boss Show. I am excited to speak with you here today. One of the most important healthy practices that we can get into that helps us maintain our nutrition, which is a key part of managing our weight and obviously managing our energy levels, making sure that our bodies are functioning optimally, is learning how to cook more often at home, or getting ourselves into the practice of cooking more often at home. No, this is not the only way to have a healthy diet, but studies do show that people who cook most of their meals at home actually eat a healthier diet even without even trying. You have more control over what goes into your food. You are more likely to eat those fruits and vegetables, and you're just going to automatically have a better shot at getting that nutrition that you set out to fill your body with. So oftentimes, we have good intentions, but if we don't have healthy food around us, then we end up just going towards that unhealthy option. So when we cook at home, chances are better that we're going to have those healthy options available to us. But this can be easier said than done. And one of the biggest frustrations or obstacles or challenges that we might find is that we're often not cooking for just ourselves. So if we live with anyone, or we often share meals with anyone, whether we have a spouse or kids, or live with a significant other, or have roommates that might influence what we eat and cook and meals that we share together, we can often face some challenges around that. So I want to make tonight really practical. I want to look at some factors and present you with some ideas and some practicalities for overcoming those challenges of doing meal planning for multiple family members. So as I was outlining this episode, I like to have 3 bullet points. It seems like this nice, round number. I guess it's not technically an even number, is it? It's an odd number, but we like to have 3 bullet points. Well, really, I just have one main bullet point of the principle, and then we're going to look at some practical action steps for that. But we're also going to look at the main principle as it plays out in a couple of different ways. So really my main point, my main principle, my main teaching moment here is that you want to try to get away from creating multiple meals at one sitting. So that is, if your kid doesn't like green beans and your husband does, and suddenly you're making a different meal for every person at the table, you have got to get away from this. This is going to place far too much burden on you, and it already takes effort and a little bit of strategy and planning to put a meal plan together, to spend the time grocery shopping and cooking. And I'm definitely going to share some exciting resources at the end to make that whole process easier. But if we're doing that, times 2 or times 3 or times 4 for multiple family members, we're going to get frustrated. It's not fair. If chances are, if you're the one listening to this, then you are probably the one that is often in charge of preparing meals. And it's not fair to you. It's not a good use of your energy. You are a business owner. You have a lot on your plate, literally. You don't need to try to be managing multiple people's literal plates. So just relieve the burden, relieve the pressure of trying to create multiple meals. Now we're going to look, because I know, again, even that can be easier said than done. We're going to look at how that kind of plays out with different scenarios. So the reason that you are working with different tastes and preferences, it might have to do with picky eaters, either your child or your partner. Or it might have to do with special diets and food sensitivities. So I know in my household, my husband, although he's a super healthy eater, and so fortunately we have that in common, so there's less resistance there, but he has a lot of food allergies. He gets migraine headaches, so there are a lot of allergens that tend to disrupt his health and his headaches. So even healthy foods like avocados and like nuts and a lot of normal things that healthy people like to eat, he can't eat that. So you might be looking at limitations with your menu because maybe you have someone in your family who has celiac disease, or maybe you have a diabetic in your family, or maybe some of your family members are vegetarian and others are meat eaters. So we have to factor all these things in. And one of my biggest admonitions for you is you've got to start learning how to embrace less variety. Yeah, I know that sounds like kind of a compromise, but it's okay to have fewer meals that you share in common, or fewer options of meals that you share in common, and just stick to those tried and true things. It's really okay. And chances are good that you have gotten overwhelmed anyway when you start to browse Pinterest for recipes, and there are so many options, right? So narrowing the pool down to what works specifically for your unique makeup of family members and their different dietary preferences and restrictions, that's okay. Narrowing that pool is actually, although it might take a little bit more research and work up front, it's actually going to it's going to give you fewer options, and sometimes fewer options is actually easier on your brain when you don't have to consider everything. You know how when you go into the grocery and maybe you're buying a box of cereal, and it's not choosing between one box of cereal and the other, it's choosing between one and 40 boxes of cereal. So at that point, that is actually not totally cool for the brain. You can definitely get decision overload. So just learn to start to learn when you are cooking for everyone. Just learn to find those common ground meals. I promise you they're there, that you can cook, that it's going to work for everyone and their unique diets. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit deeper into this principle, because there are some different factors at play when it comes to the reasons that the different family members are eating different things. So right off the bat, one of the biggest things that you can be dealing with, in addition to food sensitivities, which we mentioned, is picky eaters. So if you have picky eaters in your household, that could be your child, that could be your significant other, or it could be you, right? So you might be the picky one, and that's okay. So how you look at these different levels of pickiness, I think actually depends on who the family member is. So I'm going to be giving you some opinions. There's lots of different thoughts on this, and there's probably a lot of side conversations that we could take from this. I don't want to get too distracted. I'm going to offer my opinions, and then you can let that sit with you and see how it feels to you and your family. Okay, so let's talk first about kids who are picky eaters, applying the picky eater situation to kiddos. Again, I'm going to have some opinions. They may not be yours, and I'm not going to dive too far into what really crosses the line from meal planning and kind of my realm of expertise, which is healthy habit formation and parenting. I want to be careful not to cross that line. But I do want to encourage you that cooking multiple meals for your kiddos kind of sets a wrong tone. I'm not even going to dive into, again, the parenting implications of this, other than the fact that when you allow your children to eat less healthy meals in lieu of the healthy meal that maybe you prepared for yourself and you feel like is working towards your nutrition goals, you are setting the precedent that they don't need to eat healthfully. When in fact, you setting that example for them and creating that foundation is what they are going to grow up thinking is normal. So I promise you, and of course, it does become more difficult once kiddos are ingrained in eating unhealthy. So those habits can be difficult to undo. I get that. We're not going to dive real deep into that yet. But I do want to say that studies have shown that children who are exposed to healthy foods from an early standpoint, they can learn to love it. And it's just a myth that kids only like pizza and cheeseburgers and white buttered noodles and grilled cheese sandwiches, because not every country feeds their kids this as a standard kids diet. I really recommend the book Bringing Up Bebe, which is a book on just comparing French parenting to American parenting. Again, I said I wasn't getting into parenting, but the reason that I bring this up is that there's lots of evidence that in France, where it's just kind of a different culture around food and bringing children up around food, if you look at the French, so they have kind of a, what's the word? Not socialized. but like a centralized government-sponsored daycare program. And what they serve, they have very strict requirements for what they serve, this preschool and national public preschool and daycare program. They are serving braised leeks. They serve these little tiny tykes, 3-course meals that are all centered around extremely fresh, whole, real, veggie-packed ingredients. So again, I know it can be much more difficult to undo that process once you have already kind of awakened the monster and let kiddos know that there is such a thing as ice cream and chicken nuggets and French fries. So I understand that's a struggle, and I don't have enough experience to really speak too deeply into this since I don't yet have kids myself. I've done a lot of nannying, but I don't want to try to tread on territory that I have not trodden before. So that's actually even a great thing to bring up for those of you that do have kids. If you feel like this is a topic that you need a little bit more help and support with, then I encourage you to share your wisdom within our private Facebook group or just in the comments below. Certainly, that's a community conversation that I would love to have. But I do know that there's no biological drive for kids to turn down spinach unless they just have been exposed to other foods. So that's all I'm saying is you really want to set the foundation for your kids that eating healthy is important. It's not important because, you are whatever you are, 42 and overweight and trying to lose weight. That's not what healthy eating is all about. Healthy eating is about nourishing at any age, creating the building blocks of your cells that are going to influence the blueprint of your DNA, are going to influence your metabolism, your every function in your body really depends on having critical nutrition. So I can't stress enough, and I can say this not having kids, but caring about your kids, I can't stress enough how important it is that you do teach children to eat healthfully at a young age. Okay, so all that being said, maybe you still do have to limit and cater to some of their preferences. If your child likes, tomatoes but not peas, maybe your family's eating a lot of tomatoes in the next few years. And I'm okay with that. That's where as families, we do need to kind of find that compromise and work with what those preferences are. I love spicy foods. My husband doesn't. So again, it's okay to kind of find those compromises there. But I promise you can find those healthy recipes that you can all agree on. Okay, so that's just a few important notes when we are talking about eating healthfully and eating a common meal with picky eater kiddos. How about that picky eater spouse? Again, this is a great conversation I would actually love to open up to the community. I am fortunate. I'm going to be totally transparent. I'm fortunate to have a spouse who shares a lot of my nutrition goals. We met in the health industry. We met in yoga class. So our interests in that area naturally aligned. I do sympathize for those who don't have that. So again, I can only offer so much support in this area, but there are a few things I know to be true. First of all, this is true just whether you're talking about nutrition or not. This is true of any marriage or any relationship. You can't change someone who doesn't want to be changed. You can't, but trying to guilt someone into it is absolutely the worst way to go. So if you are suggesting healthy changes to your spouse, then there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. The right way, I believe, is in sharing your own reasons for wanting to be healthy, for recruiting your loved one's support and asking them if they will commit to this lifestyle with you to help support you. When you make it about you, and especially how you feel, not how you look, then that's really hard for someone who loves you to try to argue that they're not going to do their best to support you. That doesn't mean that they're going to eat exactly what you eat with, whether they're alone or with you. But that's going to be your best bet for recruiting someone to join you on that journey. And I know that because that's true. Again, if you've been in a relationship for anything longer than, a few weeks, that's true. If you are wanting someone to align with you more closely in an area, it's really better to recruit their support of you and explain why it's important to you. and then just be that good example. Nagging is not the way to go. So that being said, that may go so far. If a husband or a wife is not willing to comply with that at all, then that's probably a whole separate issue that I am not qualified to speak to. And that's where probably my training ends, and maybe someone else's can kick in. But you can't control it. If someone is not 100% gung-ho and they still have those things that are important to them, there still are some workarounds. So you can work with a picky eater that you are married to or love or share a roof with. So you can clean up traditional comfort foods. So instead of just picking, these exotic recipes and maybe diving into tofu and bok choy and chia seed pudding, you can find much cleaner, healthier versions of whatever those kind of simple comfort foods that picky eaters tend to be more drawn to. Find ways to make them a little bit cleaner. For example, if your significant other likes breaded foods or foods that are fried, you can saute them, you can bread them in flax meal instead of breadcrumbs. So I think flax meal is a wonderful alternative to white breadcrumbs for whether you're sprinkling it on top or trying to bread something that you're maybe sauteing. So that's a great option. I make a clean version of my tuna noodle casserole, which I actually have sitting in my freezer right now, that instead of all the white pasta and cream of mushroom soup and yucky stuff that normally goes in there, I make it with whole grain noodles. I make it with wild-caught albacore tuna. I use Greek yogurt instead of the sour creams or the cream of mushroom soups. I put fresh celery in there, fresh mushrooms, and then I even put some riced cauliflower in there because you can sneak it on in there and you don't even notice you're getting more vegetables out of it. So, and if you're looking for that recipe, by the way, or I've got a ton of recipes over on my Pinterest page. So if you search, I think the link is just pinterest.com/wealthyboss. Anyway, if you search for me on Pinterest, you're going to find a ton of recipes, including some cleaned up versions of those more traditional comfort foods, which might be a little bit more tolerable, and that might be a nice, happy compromise for a significant other who is a picky eater. And finally, if that's not even going over so well, I am okay with you making modifications available at the meal. So if your significant other is really into something that's unhealthy, maybe you just leave that as an option. So maybe you don't have to add it, but they can. So you're not completely creating different recipes. For example, instead of, you could put ranch dressing on the side for your husband or wife, while maybe you are using olive oil and lemon juice as your dressing for your salad instead. Or maybe if you're serving tacos and your husband or wife or girlfriend or boyfriend loves sour cream with that, maybe you put that on the side and you get Greek yogurt for you. So there are some nice balances and compromises that we can find that are still minimizing your effort. They're keeping it easy on you because, one, I don't want you to get frustrated and give up and not invest in cooking some healthy meals at home. But two, I don't want you to spend so much time on that you are not reinvesting back in your business, because I understand as a business owner, that's really important for you to just kind of get on and get on with your life, get it done and simplify it any way you can. So that's why, with the main principle in this training being don't create separate meals, I really want you to embrace the idea of creating a meal rotation. So we talked about embracing less variety, being okay with narrowing the pool of those options that we're going to make that suit the entire range of needs or tastes or preferences with our family members. But don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So, you might find that you have a few different recipes on rotation. So maybe you make one recipe that you're eating a lot of, or a batch of recipes, or 7 recipes, or 14 recipes that you're using for a few months, and then you rotate for another few months, you're eating something else. But guess what? After 6 months, you probably could go back and eat that first round of recipes that you have. So creating a meal rotation can really help with this. It's also going to help eliminate that prep time or that planning time every week that, you sit down before you go to the grocery store and think, crap, what should I make this time? Hang on to those recipes, hang on to the ingredient lists. And I'm going to show you how to go even deeper with all that and make it super systematic. So I promised you that today was actually just a warm up for a very special upcoming training that is all around doing a deep dive into creating a healthy meal plan as a busy entrepreneur. So this is something that I struggled with for a while. I will be totally honest. My husband and I had definitely had more of our fair share of frozen pizzas, which we kind of justified in our minds because it's like, oh, they were veggie pizzas and maybe they had organic flour. Still wasn't the super healthy option. But once I realized that I can kind of create this sense of rotation and repetition and embrace the fact that I actually don't need as much variety in my diet as I once thought. And studies actually show that people who are consistently healthy eaters actually don't have a ton of variety in their lives. And that's because they've made it easy. They've made it repeatable. They've turned it into a process. They've turned it into a system. Well, I have totally used myself as a guinea pig and created a system, my meal planning mastery system, that streamlines all of this. It streamlines the meal planning process. It streamlines the grocery shopping list process. It streamlines the actual meal prep process. And it just saves you so much time and mental energy that you need to spend on your business. You don't have time to spend all day long on your health, but you do need to spend enough time in your health that you're functioning optimally, that your brain is energized, that your cells have the nourishment that they need to continue at this high-paced lifestyle that most of us as entrepreneurs are living out day after day. So to be at their best, to be at the top of our game, we really need to give ourselves, the fuel and create these healthy habits to be our best. But we certainly don't want to spend more time than we need to on it. That's why I would love to invite you to join me for an upcoming free masterclass called the Busy Entrepreneur's Meal Planning Shortcuts. So this special training, we're going to dive even deeper and we're going to look at how you can put healthy dinners on the table by next week without stressing over it, and most importantly, without cutting into your productivity. So I'm specifically going to teach you how to start viewing your kitchen as this sacred space to take care of yourself. Not just one more thing that's on your to-do list that is just stressing you out. We're going to take just a high-level approach to recognize just how fundamental it is to invest in our health. But then, of course, we're going to get super practical and systematic with it by setting even more clear, realistic cooking goals and selecting recipes that support your goals, which we dove into a little bit today. We're going to talk about how to batch your food. This is my favorite part. Like you'd batch your social media posts or any other process that you have in your business. It's going to save you so much time, so much money, so much mental overwhelm, because I know you have a better place to put those resources, and that's back into your business and your family. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate the need to go to the grocery store more than once a week, because God knows you don't have time to go to the grocery store 3 nights a week. And then, by the way, still not know what to make for dinner or leave all that produce rotting at the back of the bin. Hey, I get it. I've been there. I've founded this process because I've reach these same pain points myself. And then because of all this, you're automatically going to reduce your intake of calories, simple carbohydrates, sugar. Statistics show you will lose up to 12 pounds a year without even trying by making an intention to cook at home. Not to mention all the money that you're going to save as well, because there's lots of studies that show how much money we save when we cook at home as well. So I invite you to join that free special master class by going to wealthyboss.com/meal planning. Remember, Wealthy Boss is spelled WELL, And again, that URL is wealthyboss.com/meal planning to register for that free upcoming training. I'm so excited to share my secrets with you, and I can't wait to hear how these strategies save you time, effort, help you eat more fruits and vegetables and healthy, nourishing food, meet your nutrition goals, meet your weight loss goals, and hey, maybe save some money while you're at it. I look forward to seeing you at that training. Take care.